From AATH, the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, this is Laughbox, the podcast for laughter and humor professionals. Here's your host, Chip Lutz.
It's time for Laughbox. Yes, my favorite time of the week, and perhaps yours too. Hey, did you hear about the guy who went to the AATH conference? No? Well, his life was never the same. That guy was me, 2006. I'm going to encourage you to go to this year's conference in 2019, in April, in Chicago. Check it out at aath.org. Your life won't ever be the same. In this week's interview, I'm talking to Wade Lightheart. He's a 3-time natural bodybuilding champion, and we're talking about health, baby. Yeah, health. Wade shares some awesome things I had no idea happen within our bodies and things that you can get checked out. So I want you to sit back and actually grab a paper and pencil. You're going to want to write some stuff down because he gives a special offer at the end. So enjoy. Well, hello, friends. Welcome to the podcast. This is Chip Lutz, the unconventional leader. And today I get to talk to a pretty cool guy. I get to talk to 3-time natural bodybuilding champion, Wade Lightheart. So welcome, Wade, to the podcast. Big cheers to you, my friends.
Great to be here, Chip. Thanks for having me.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. So, for my listeners, if you can give them like the 411 on who Wade, this mysterious man of mystery, is.
Well, I think it started off pretty humble beginnings in Canada, a place called New Brunswick, which is right next to Maine, for those who don't know where that is, and that wouldn't be surprising. Grew up in a very rural setting, played hockey like all kids in Canada, and then I had some life-transforming experiences when I was 15 years old. 3 things happened. One, my parents moved to an extremely rural place, meaning 5 miles to my nearest neighbor. I literally was in the woods. Telephone poles ended at my door. We had our own plowing equipment, and I used to take a snowmobile out to get the school bus. So that was interesting. Took me put me in a place where I had to do I spent a lot of time by myself, a lot of time in reflection or contemplation, and a lot of time in nature, which I didn't like at the time, but turned out to be valuable later on in life. I began to realize. Simultaneously, my sister was diagnosed with cancer at that time, and I watched her go through the medical model over 4 years before she died. And that had a very profound impact on me. She was 4 years my senior. And so I learned that life or health isn't a guarantee, and that you can't really experience health through a medical model. You can maybe treat a disease, but you're not really experiencing health. And then the third thing is she had given me a bodybuilding magazine at that time, which had a picture of Mr. California on it and 2 pretty girls, and driven mad with testosterone at 15 years old. I was like, wow, geez, maybe I better get some of these muscles, but I want some of these girls. And I built a gym, kind of a la Rocky, was it 4, where he fought the Drago, in a barn in the middle of the snow, and started training, went on to university, studied exercise physiology, mentored under some coaches later on, and eventually led to me representing my country at the Mr. Universe contest in 2003 as a bodybuilding champion, which also set me up for my life today because I had a major health crisis after that.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. What was the major health crisis?
Well, after the Mr. Universe contest, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah, so don't try this at home, as they say. Fortunately, I met a doctor who, after that thing, because here I've got perfect diet, perfect training. I'm doing everything you're supposed to do. I've studied exercise physiology, nutrition. I've got the best coaching you can get. I'm at the pinnacle of what a lot of people would say is cosmetic fitness, because essentially that's what it is. And what's going on? And I met this doctor, and he said to me, Wade, you've learned how to build the body from the outside in. You haven't learned to build the body from the inside out. And I was like, wow. Yeah. I was like, oh man, he's so right. And he was in his 70s. He was super vibrant. He had all kinds of energy. He was ridiculously strong and vibrant. And I was like, and I was like, yeah, well, you know, this guy would kick my butt. So I mean, like, I better learn from this guy. He knows something I don't.
Yeah.
And literally, I rebuilt my body by fixing my digestion, and that led to me and my business partner, who were both personal trainers at the time, to develop a company that focused on that.
Well, and I want to talk about that a little bit. And I want to talk about, you know, going a health from the inside out. I mean, but let's go back to that muscle mag, because I mean that's so interesting. Because I'm assuming I'm a little bit older than you, but and what I loved about on your website, where it was like, you know, the natural, you know, you did it all naturally. Because I grew up, you know, seeing the same thing, you know, like I was a big Arnie fan, and he didn't realize till later on that Arnie was taking roids, you know, pretty seriously. And what's funny is that you built your gym very Rocky IV. I knew completely what you were talking about there because I'm a big Rocky fan. Anyway, so in building that, I mean, that must have been like a big effort, you know, as a young man like that. It's like, I got to do something. So, I mean, where did you go for your what's the word I'm looking for your basis on like building your gym? I mean, it's just like, you know, did you go to the library, research stuff? I mean, where did you get your ideas for like what you needed to do?
Oh, good question. So, well, first thing, I needed a weight set, so I decided I would get a job so I could make some money, because there was a company called Consumers Distributing, which you used to get things from a magazine, and it was like a warehouse.
Uh-huh.
And they had a York barbell set with a bench and everything, and I'd see these in the magazines, and I was like, okay, I obviously need one of those to do these exercises they're recommending.
Right.
So I got that, but the problem was I didn't have a squat rack, I didn't have a pulley, a pull down machine, or anything like that. So I was like, okay, what can I didn't have a dipping station, all these different things. And so I went, okay, well, what do I need? When you have a lot of time, which I did, I was here by myself, I had to start figuring things out. So I realized, well, I can make a dipping station if I took this two-wheeler that hauls carts around and I put that under a tractor tire. And if I took these sawhorses that we cut boards on or cut wood on, I could use that as a squat rack. And I could take this pulley here and I could screw it into this beam and run a cable off it. And it was the crudest pull down machine ever, because I hooked the T-bar through a wire, or through a cable, and then I screwed a long steel cylinder into that T that was attached to the bottom, and then I'd slide these York weights onto that bar, then screw it in, and they do the pull downs. But you had to be really smooth on the pull downs, or the thing would swing back and hit you in the head. so it was crude, but you know, as a young man. And I think the cool thing was it was almost my own rites of passage, because everything in my life was out of control from the standpoint. I couldn't control where I lived. I couldn't control my sister being sick.
Right.
Control. This was a place that I could kind of go back and take control of my life and see progress. And that became extremely satisfying. And I think was really powerful in my formative years.
Yeah. Your own fortress of solitude.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what's funny is I'm so familiar with the York Barbell Company. My second reenlistment in the Navy, York, Pennsylvania, I reenlisted at the York Bodybuilding Hall of Fame right there. I signed my contract on a plaster replica of Arnold Schwarzenegger's lats. And yeah, it was a good time.
That's awesome. I'm one of the few people who don't think that's the greatest story ever.
Well, it was just funny because, like, you know, at that time, you know, you could re-enlist wherever you wanted to re-enlist. So it's like, you know, I was there stationed right outside Philadelphia, and my friend and I, we worked out together all the time. And he's like, "Hey, where do you want to re-enlist?" I'm like, "I don't know where." He goes, "Hey, let's go to York. They've got the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame." I'm like, "That'd be awesome." So we went there and re-enlisted. It was pretty cool. So when he said York, I was like, oh man, we're like almost like brothers, except I didn't build my own gym. I grew up a fat kid, so I didn't get into working out until later in life when I knew I needed to. And even so, it's a constant love-hate relationship with the gym. Anyway, so Going back to what you were talking about with you throwing on all that weight and you meeting this person, that's kind of a cool story in that almost like fate brought you together with this person that in essence really kind of like saved you in a way.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember I met him as I was getting preparing for the Mr. Universe contest, and I wasn't feeling that great leading up to that. I had, I was basically brain dead. My joints hurt. I was extremely tired and fatigued. But that was just kind of the standard of, operating system for people competing for. That year I had to win 3 different shows to go, and I was on a contest diet for a long period of time, saying very low body fat levels, which isn't healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And he introduced some ideas before that contest, which were counter to everything that was out there. And I remember that kind of rattling around in my head and going, geez, this guy's got something, but I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then after, of course, I had my meltdown, I sought him out. And fortunately, I was able to have him mentor me and teach me the things that I didn't know, and that transformed my life.
So again, I'm really interested in that because the whole digestive thing. I mean, last year I ended up on Easter morning. I ended up having a perforated bowel. It was horrible. I thought I was going to die, and actually I could have died, but I got to the hospital quick enough. I spent like 4 months with an ostomy. It was nobody ever wants one of those. I'm just telling you. And if you got one and you're listening, I'm sorry, but so. Let's talk about that whole digestive health piece, because I think that that's something that with all I blame my perforated bowel on yo-yo diets. I do this for a little bit, I do that for a little bit. And like when I was talking to my doctor, he was like, what I went through health-wise was something like the surgery I went through is something like in people, the doctors in Africa only read about, because, their diet is such that it promotes good digestive health. So, let's, can we get into that a little bit? And, what are the facets of, having a good gut?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that we didn't really have to deal with. It's a modern based disease because of what's happened culturally, in the world. And let me explain that for a second. So if you look at the history of humanity, we've gone through a couple of different parameters. And I'm going to explain this because you have to understand the environment that's allowed these massive shifts, because digestive related illnesses now are the 5th leading cause of death. And they're
Really?
also, they're big contributors also to cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, the big 3 killers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then of course the 4th one is the overprescription of or contraindications between medications to treat some of the other diseases. So it's like, and I'm not here to disparage medical doctors and stuff, because basically they're the last line of defense when your lifestyle's got you.
Uh-huh.
And it's our responsibility to take care of this. But the problem is, we were hunter-gatherers before, and we foraged around and we ate local food and everything was in its natural state. And then we eventually evolved into farming, which was actually in some ways a step backwards from this, because we didn't have as much variety in our diets. And so we developed a kind of civilization-based diseases and certainly a lot more problems with infection and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then came the Industrial Revolution, which kind of made mass production of food available for the first time in history. Up until this time, it was a much better situation if you ate more food, because you're not sure when you're going to have the last one. So we're genetically built to eat more than we need to, because traditionally we didn't have to worry about that in the past. There wasn't enough food to go around. But now there's too much. The other thing is after World War II, there was an excess of nitrogen around from the unused bombs, and they decided, hey, well, let's put that into the soil and start growing crops, because we can increase the yield from a volume, size, and speed. However, we're losing nutrient density. So the U.S. government reported that wheat, for example, at the turn of the century was about 90% protein. Now it's less than 7%.
Shut up! Really?
Yeah, this was in Congress, was an issue, and then
I had no idea. That's
how
crazy.
people lived on bread in the Middle Ages.
Wow.
So now we have we moved into monoculturing. We moved into subsidizing kind of some monoculture crops. Then came the use, because the crops would be essentially weaker strains. They would have less nutrients in it. They would have less minerals in it. They would have less enzymes present in it, less amino acids present in it. So they're bigger, they're faster, but there's less in it. Mm-hmm. Then, so what do we need? We need herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides to go on to that, right? In order to maintain the integrity of the food, to protect it from the bugs. Mm-hmm. So we add all that into the dietary chain. Now, how herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides work in the body is they interrupt enzymatic processes in the body. Enzymes are responsible for everything from thinking to blinking. It's the difference between living organisms and stones, and they're basically catalysts for chemical reactions. Virtually everything that you can do requires an enzyme. Probiotics are bacteria strains that are really little intelligent bags of enzymes that go around and perform basic functions. And those two things are essential to assimilating and utilizing and absorbing our food. Enzymes and probiotics, they're the workers. And everything else in nutrition, and I'm classically trained nutritionist and studied exercise physiology, everything is either energy units or it's building blocks. The only things that do work in the body is enzymes and probiotics. But as a culture, we're feeding ourselves. First off, we're the only species that eats cooked food, right? So every other animal eats food in its live state where it gets its enzymes and gets the probiotics naturally occurring to that. Because of modern production, we heat it, we kill it, we destroy the enzymes, we wipe out the bacteria that might be found on it if we were to grow a carrot in the ground and eat it and all that sort of stuff. And there's reasons for that. But the bottom line is the average person is consuming more calories, but they're not providing enough workers to break down and digest the food. And anytime you don't digest and assimilate your food, it now becomes a toxin. So your body has a couple options: store it as a fat cell, and then, or it's just kind of rots inside inside your guts, and that feeds bad bacteria.
That sounds horrible.
Well, you go into a change room in any gym around the world. It doesn't smell too good. Well, that's a clue. And the clue is that you have bad bacteria that are now feeding on the undigested food. They're producing indole, scadol, all these different toxins that's impairing people's moods. It's causing them to gain weight. It's giving them food cravings at 2:00 in the morning. They're not able to go to the bathroom properly because they're not getting proper peristaltic contraction. They're not able to rebuild their organs or muscle tissues and things like that. The one thing that we do know is that the longest living populations in the world eat less than people who don't. And so why is that? They're preserving their enzyme and their bacteria pools in a way that allows them to support life for a longer period of time.
Interesting. So, like, now going back, you were talking about the two workers. So, and we don't get those workers because we cook everything. Like, I live on a farm. I have, chickens and turkeys and stuff. I couldn't imagine just going out and like beating one and eating it raw. But, so like, because you see all the time, like, oh, this has got probiotics in this, and you got, you want all this protein here and stuff like that. It gets really confusing on, what you need, how you need it, like, what's a person to do? I mean, where do you get the right information? Because there's so much conflicting information out there.
And you're right. And that's, I think, another one of the issues is that the average person, unless they've really studied this extensively and have a background in this, is almost in a hopeless situation. First and foremost, you need to understand your own individual genetics and epigenetics. In other words, the dietary components that are going to be most suitable for your individual body.
It's time for Fun Facts. Fun Facts is where we share some facts about humor, laughter, sometimes nothing at all, but this week's fact is about humor in the workplace. Fact: humor is more important than pay. An industry-wide study of over 2,500 people found that 55% of workers would take less pay to have more fun at work. This means a majority of people would literally take a pay cut for a more lighthearted work environment. I don't know about you, but that's always been true for me. I never had a job where I woke up every morning and thinking, oh my God, this is what I get to do. It's always been about the fun I got to have with the people I was around. So, Now back to that interview with Wade.
And you can get some testing nowadays, relatively inexpensive. You can go to 23andMe for genetic testing. You can get a naturopathic doctor that can look at your genetics and epigenetics. And
Really?
Yeah, I have a ND that helps me interpret the data. And basically, we determine which foods are not going to be supported by my system and which ones are going to be. So, for example, my business partner, Matt Gallant, he's a keto guy, and I'm a vegetarian. We're on polar ends of the spectrum of the dietary program, but we both address our digestive capacity, because you're not what you eat, you're what you digest, absorb, and utilize. And so, and that's a result of the digestive process in your body. And then there's tests now that can demonstrate what you can do. And the other thing is you just got to pay attention to all of the chemical agents that's been added to our diets that as a species we have yet to adapt to. And that is particularly, as I mentioned, the herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, dyes, preservatives, and other chemical agents, fillers, binders, these type of things that our bodies can't process. And anything you can't process now becomes a toxin, puts a bigger metabolic load on your body. Your body will then store that chemical in a fat cell if it can't process it through a liver to hopefully deal with it some other day. And people start dealing with obesity, then they start running into complications from that, chronic inflammation inside the digestive system that eventually leads to situations something like you experienced.
Man, you're like depressing the hell out of me.
Sorry, it's not my intention.
It's like, please, Marley, speak comforts to me. You know,
well,
it's interesting that like to go through, because I never really thought about it from a genetic standpoint. Like I realized that like my genetics, like, you know, I work out, you know, I go to the gym, you know, 5 out of 7 days of the week. But I understand that, you know, with my body, I'm never going to be, you know, like some of the big bodybuilders. That's just not my body type, right? You know, I work out to stay healthy because I'm in my 50s and I don't want to die tomorrow. However, I never really thought about the genetic process of, you know, digesting food. I just figured that people, you know, that's your body, you know, if you eat less sugar, you manage your vegetables versus protein, you know, stuff like that, you'll be pretty much healthy. But what you're saying is that you really need to be concerned with, you know, how your genetics factor into all that.
Yeah, it's a big factor. And of course, that's not a popular conversation today, but years ago, there was a top bodybuilding coach and his name was Chris Aceto. And you can check him out. He was famous for doing a nutrition training. And he wrote a paper and was able to demonstrate scientifically that there are genetic predispositions for how you metabolize, for example, carbohydrates. I'll give you a simple example. If you grew up in a culture like, say, Ireland, which had access to potatoes for many generations, your blood sugar response to potatoes would be significantly different than your blood response to rice, maybe something that wasn't introduced into your culture. Simultaneously, if you compare that to someone of an Asian background, they would metabolize rice very well and potatoes not as well. Now, that's very, very basic. And, you know, I wouldn't want anyone to draw specific conclusions on it, but you can take that down. And what's interesting about humans is we adapt to the environment, but sometimes this takes, you know, several generations to make those integrations. And of course, through natural selection, you know, people where that diet didn't suit them, well, they didn't make it, they didn't reproduce, or their families died out. So that's an unfortunate part that, you know, we live in these kind of like cushy worlds today that we're not attuned to maybe the reality of natural selection.
Well, it's just, it's kind of funny. In my head, I'm thinking, all right, so if that's the case, you know, you're thinking about like potatoes in Ireland, rice in Asia, and then you're thinking about, all right, the U.S. Does that mean that we're going to process McDonald's better than other cultures?
Well, that's good question. What I would say, this is the next introduction to the compounding and why we're seeing such an explosion in digestive related illnesses and depression in today's world, because our bodies are not able to convert the genetically modified Franklin foods, I like to call them, into usable energy units. And these things end up feeding what I would call bad bacteria, for lack of a better name, which are essential to we have good and bad and kind of opportunist bacteria in the body. And those things start producing all sorts of toxins inside the body. Basically, they poop in our blood. And this is where a lot of people don't have the energy to reach their dreams, might feel anxiety or depression, might have skin conditions, might have inability to manage their weight. They don't know why they're getting food cravings at 2:00 in the morning for a Jerry's 2-liter of ice cream or whatever. But basically, we've now shown that the gut bacteria is like our second brain. We all said that it's my gut instinct. Well, it turns out that these bacteria are so intelligent, they dial into our nervous system and actually produce a variety of chemicals that feeds both thoughts and emotions inside our brains.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. I did not know any of that. All right. So you painted this really, I don't want to say bleak picture, but this picture makes me afraid to eat anything. So what are some solutions for people? Cause we can, like, if you come from the European section, are there things like, just genetically you're better off eating, or if you're from Asia, these are things you're better off eating, or should you do the 23andMe and find out what it is, or just like, hey, this is kind of like a solid diet plan? I mean, what are some things that you can do? Because it's got to be, like, for me, it's just kind of like super confusing. I mean, I like to eat what I like to eat. However, I know what makes me put on weight. I know what keeps my weight kind of maintained as well, fairly well. So what do you do?
Great question. I think a genetic testing is a really great opportunity because it'll start to show you agents that you're not going to process very well. And that's going to run into problems. I think it's a great start. And they're very inexpensive right now, a couple $100. And you can get just some fascinating data about yourself. And I think most people that do it are just like blown away about what was previously unknowable just even a decade or so ago. I think the second thing is the one rule is eat less. So I do believe practicing either intermittent fasting or fasting is good because that rests the digestive organs and is also a little bit more natural. And going back to the longevity component, whatever diet is that you're following, if you can eat less. Now, in order to eat less, though, typically you need to eat a diet that is going to be supportive, again, that's going to be right for you. So, for example, I metabolize and process carbohydrates very well. My business partner, Matt, doesn't. He does better on fats. So he has a diet that is more dominant in fats, and that's allowed him to achieve an ideal body weight. And for me, I need more carbohydrates and plant-based stuff. That's what I do better on. So those are things. The next thing is I believe that introducing a little bit of fermented foods, and you're going to have to experiment a little bit. So if you're kind of like a sausage and potatoes kind of guy, a little bit of sauerkraut into your diet is going to be a good idea. And if you can make it yourself, it's always going to be better than anything you get in the store. Or at least if you get it in the store, make sure it's at a high quality store that's providing, live active strains of bacteria. If you're more towards Eastern cuisine, kimchi and miso are fermented foods. So cultures around the world have developed these fermented foods based on their dietary habits. They figured this out. So introducing those in, I think, are great steps.
Interesting.
Into people's diets. The other thing is, I would say for most people, protein and fats, making sure they get enough essential fatty acids that's not rancid. And then if you can, start cutting out the genetically modified foods. The big inflammatory ones, in my opinion, is corn and soy, which happen to be subsidized foods in the monoculture world that's produced widely in the States. And I think one of the big reasons that people are suffering so much from obesity, it's not so much the calories, it's that the people can't metabolize the food that they're eating.
Now, when you're saying corn, are you saying like corn products? Or are you talking about like corn?
All corn products. Most of the corn products in the United States are genetically modified.
What about like corn on the cob? Because that's like my favorite season during the summer is corn season. When it's like,
Yeah, if you're
it's
gonna eat
like
corn on the
you go
cob,
by the you
yeah,
go by the farmer's market. They have corn. That is my favorite season. It's corn season.
do the blue corn. Blue corn's pretty clean. I like corn, and but I don't eat too much of it. And if I can, I go to blue corn because the bottom line is the same thing with soy. If people are into soy products, it's almost impossible to get non-genetically modified food, and our bodies just can't break that down.
Really? Now, what about like, well, going back, I think it's fascinating that even before we knew the science of things, certain cultures developed foods that were good for their digestive health. Like, you said like kimchi, sauerkraut, those are things that they're like, oh, these are things that, inherently they knew that, oh, these are good for you. And so that was just very interesting to me that you brought that out. Now, what about?
It is fascinating.
Yeah. Now, what about stuff like like Activia? It's got like good bacteria in it. Is that all just bullshit?
Well, let me give a little etymology of the history of kind of probiotics. Probiotics are a very hot topic right now,
right?
Because there's so many people with digestive issues, and I think there's about 2,500 companies right now today that's producing some form of probiotics. Probiotics, for people who don't know, are the good bacteria, which are essential in immune function, essential in digestion, and it's good to have. The challenge is the probiotic industry took off when they started studying Bulgarian peasants who were eating this fermented kefir that they made from a culture, and they'd eat it 3 times a day, and these people live like 100 years old.
Wow.
Now, you can't just say that that's the causality, but there seemed to be a correlation, and they studied, and they found these bacteria called L. bulgaricus inside that, and said, wow, there's some properties that are helping people have a better immune system and digestive system, and that's why these people are living longer. That began the study of probiotics. So we're familiar with the bad bacteria, and we take antibiotics as medicine to kill off bad bacteria, which are anti-life, antibiotic. Probiotics are pro-life. So what's emerged out of that original research is people started using and taking various probiotic strains, acidophilus and bifidus and all of these. And there's literally hundreds of strains that have been cultivated, each one with unique and properties. The challenge is when you take a probiotic, you need to have the right amount of prebiotics, the right amount of postbiotics, in other words, food for them to culture. And they need to be in a format where they're actually live. The problem is most of the companies who are producing products in the industry they're not checking their source. They don't know if it's live or dead. Oftentimes they've been irradiated, and most of the probiotics and yogurts and things that people are buying are absolute a total waste of money.
Really?
They might as well stop taking it. Forget it. You're not doing. I would much better, going to your grandma and getting her sauerkraut that she fermented in her crock of their house would be way better than anything you're going to buy at the store and those things. And so now, that being said, there are some well-researched, well-developed premium probiotics that are out there in the market, but they're going to be at a higher price point because it just costs a lot of money to develop, culture, and create a set of strains that are going to be not competing against each other and that are going to colonize. And for the most part, most of the colonizing strains, according to Naveen Jain, who developed a test called the Viome test, which you can actually check your own bacteria strains inside your body, just like a doctor is, a couple $100 for a test. This is we're on the kind of the golden age of this whole era. It's great. And you can find out what strains you have and what strains might be beneficial for us. And I think there was researchers in Europe tested, 55 different probiotic strains, and none of them were colonizing. So you got to get a good probiotic out there.
I'm just really upset now because like Jamie Lee Curtis was on TV, talking about Activia, about how great it is. And so now I'm just shattered because now I just want to write a letter, tell her to screw off. I mean, that's horrible.
Well, the thing is she's probably good intentioned and she probably feels good about it.
That's so politically correct.
And got a nice check for it. And, went off and it's all good.
That's hilarious. It's so politically correct. Well, she probably had good intentions on that. No, it's all BS. Oh, that's funny. Now, so all that is just it's so fascinating. Now is, and I know this, but it's also very, I don't want to say so much work, but because, with the busy lives that people lead, thinking about, all right, well, I have to eat this or what this or what this, or what this. Is there some kind of like, cheat sheet out there that people can follow, or something that they can do to like, help them along the way? Because I know this is like your business. This is what you do. So, feel free to plug what you do, because I mean, I know that people would want to know.
Well, super simple. And this is the way I've corrected my own digestion. And I had that problem. And this is how I've corrected over 50,000 of our clients' digestion. And you go get a little tin of mints, and you throw the tin away, or the mints away. Don't eat the mints. They're bad for you. But take the tin of mints, and you put in that mints, you put in some really high quality enzymes and some probiotics. And, that's enough for the day. And before you eat, take a few enzymes before you eat. And every night before you go to bed, take a high quality probiotic that that will work in your system at nighttime, or you can take it right during your meal sometimes, and add some fermented foods to your diet. That alone will completely transform people's their whole feeling around eating, and literally how food feels inside their body.
Wow. Well, that's interesting how food feels inside your body, because I think that there is definitely a truth to that. I know I feel differently after I eat different foods. Like if I'm eating really, a carb heavy diet, for me and my body, I'm a lot more lethargic. I don't think as quickly. I'm tired a lot more. I just know that about my body. Now, I've never done the testing thing, which now that you've talked about it, I want to do, because it's like, am I treating my body the way it needs to be treated? Because I just, I know that on a higher protein, fattier diet, I'm a little bit lighter all the way around. So, but now I want to I want to do the test. Yes.
Did you eat a lot of sugar as a kid?
Oh man, I lived on sugar, baby. Yeah. I told you I grew up a fat kid. So, I mean, it's like sugar, that's there's sugar in it. I'm eating it. Yes.
Well, one of the things that I found for a lot of people, and this is really important for your listeners, if you ate a lot of sugar as a child, oftentimes what happens is you damage your sugar or your carbohydrate metabolizing pathways, your enzymatic pathways on that level.
Really?
Yeah. And that's why I believe that right now there's such a trend towards ketogenic diets, which are basically mostly high levels of fat and a little bit of protein and little to no carbohydrates. And I think because this is an adaptation that allows people to operate in the world, and my business partner fits into that category. He feels absolutely fantastic on his diet, but you go back and trace, he had a lot of those sugars. Now, when I grew up, I was fed an organic garden from my mom. We made fun of her. No one was doing that back then. We thought she was crazy. We ate, grass-fed beef that my uncle grew in his garden and in his farm, and we hunted and fished and all that. And even though I don't follow that type of diet now, my body was very used to metabolizing plants and vegetables and things like that. And so it became natural for me. And I didn't have the exposure to the sugars that, say, my business partner did. So I had some advantages there.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, I mean, you are like super fascinating. So much great information. I mean, really is giving me a lot of things to think about in my own diet. Makes me kind of not want to eat it all, but I know that I will. So if after today, people want to connect with you, want to find out more about where you're at, what you're doing, where do you want them to go?
Well, what I'm going to do for your audience, because we can only scratch the surfaces, is we're going to give away our course, the Awesome Health course. You'll be able to get it at bioptimizers.com/LHH. And that will allow them, you can put it in the show links. And what I have in there is literally it's an 84-day course. You can do it all at once. It's 5 to 15-minute videos on everything from enzymes, probiotic, different types of water, some of the genetic testing we talk about, the right tests for you, all these side of things. You can kind of mix and match, or you can go through the whole course, doesn't matter. But it allows you to kind of dive a little bit deeper, find out what's right for you. And it's the things that I've learned over 30 plus years. I'm not there to advocate all my products or anything like that. I'm there to take the experts, the things that I've learned over coaching all these people, and said, hey, this person has solved this challenge. This person has solved this challenge. Here's a summary.
Right.
Here's where you find out, and you go off there, and it's been a great resource for people and something I'm very passionate about sharing.
That is awesome, and I appreciate that. Thanks. I appreciate you offering that up, because I'm putting this on both my podcasts, both Leadership Happy Hour and the one I do for an association called Laughbox, because for both groups, I know they'd get a lot from everything that you shared today. But if we really were at a happy hour and you and I were sitting back having a couple beers, I don't know if you drink because you're super healthy, but if we were, I'd give you like some kind of drunk dare. I'd be like, hey, Wade, you should go do this. And you'd be like, I'm not doing that shit. But since we're not, I'm just going to ask you a few random questions from my Overstuff Would You Rather book. Are you game?
Yeah, I'm on.
All right, sweet. All right, Wade, I'm going to ask you 3, and they are random. Wherever I open the book to is where I'll open up to, so I'll apologize in advance. So I just never know.
It.
All right. Would you rather every time you're in your car have to hang your head out the window like a dog, or have to sleep curled up at the end of your parents' bed like a dog?
Definitely hanging my head out the window like a dog.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. All right. Would you rather get stung by 1,000 wasps, or have to listen to L. DeBarge's In the Rhythm of the Night 1,000 times a week? In the Rhythm of the Night.
Oh, I'm definitely going for the wasp. I'll go for the wasp therapy.
I was like, I had to think about that song for a minute. Like, In the Rhythm of the Night. Okay, all right. All right, last question. Oh, here, this is actually a perfect question. Would you rather hunt or gather?
Ooh, I see gathering as a form of hunting.
All right. Well, that all worked. That was funny. I opened up to that because it was almost like a callback to our earlier conversation on how we progressed as human beings. Well, I appreciate you spending a little time with me today. Like I said, fascinating conversation for me, and I really appreciate your time and the offer that you gave our listeners as well. Thanks so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for giving me a platform to share some information. Hopefully, help somebody.
Absolutely. What did I tell you? Great interview with Wade. Hey, get your gut checked. Go to 23andMe. More importantly, go to Wade's website and take advantage of the offer that he gave us. I'm also going to encourage you to go to AATH.org and register for the conference. It's coming up. There's only a few months left. So until next time, this is Chip Lutz saying, we'll keep the laugh on for you.
This is Laughbox, the podcast for laughter and humor professionals. Laughbox is made possible by a grant from the National Speakers Foundation and is brought to you by AATH, the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Find out more at AATH.org. Be sure to review Laughbox on iTunes. For show notes and more information about today's conversation, visit laughbox.aath.org.